How does time influence the negotiation process? We feel a lot of pressure when there is not much time available to negotiate. At the same time, it may feel as if the negotiation doesn't really begin until there is some time pressure. And the more time that is available, the more time we spend getting to know each other and asking questions. Having time to build a relationship and to exchange information in order to learn about each other's interests, time to ask why questions, is beneficial and needed in order to achieve an integrated outcome. So having enough time to discuss the relevant issues and share interests is helpful to achieving a good, mutually beneficial outcome. In contrast, when the time is short, we feel a lot of pressure to make concessions in order to reach a compromise before the time runs out. And that kind of pressure might be able to be used to our advantage. So, how should we use time and deadlines strategically? What is the best way to use time as a strategic tactic? Well, there are several important ways that time influences negotiations, such as the timing of offers, the use of deadlines, the impact of time costs, and the ability to shape the perception of such time costs. Let's start by thinking about the timing of offers. We know that there can be a first mover advantage from making the opening offer, and the reason is that we can take advantage of the anchoring effect. However, there is also the opposing effect, the lack of information effect, which says that sometimes it is better to be a follower rather than making a poor anchoring decision. Another reason to be careful about the timing of offers is that when you do something matters. And if you violate by expectations, then you might create misunderstandings. That is, the context matter. So we need to sequence our offers, concessions, and other behaviors correctly. As an example, if you make an opening offer when the other party is still in the build relationship or gathering information stage, then you will send the wrong signal to the other side. Okay, what about deadlines and time cost? First of all, although related, deadlines and time costs are quite different from each other. Of course, a deadline is a statement about when the negotiation will end. A time cost is the cost of time. That is, the mere fact that time passes is either expensive for financial reasons or because alternatives are disappearing. Let's think about deadlines. First of all, deadlines should be used carefully. Since the explicit use of deadlines may seem like a hardball tactic, they may reduce the trust and make our ability to reach an integrative outcome more difficult. Also, deadlines and ultimatums are similar in many respects. Just like it's a bad idea to announce an ultimatum and not follow through, setting a deadline only to extend it when the deadline passes is also not good. Both acts signify weakness, and we don't like to look weak. So we should try to only use deadlines when there is a clear strategic advantage from doing so. Use a deadline in order to create a sense of urgency, to avoid a long drawn-out negotiation, or when you have other good alternatives, or when you face time costs. One frequent question about deadlines is whether or not we should tell the other side if we have a deadline. It is true that a deadline will reduce a negotiator's flexibility and freedom, and therefore put pressure on the negotiator to reach an agreement quickly. And this might indicate that we should not tell the other party of our deadline. We don't want them to think that we are inflexible and under pressure. But that is actually wrong. The reason why we should always tell the other side about our deadline is twofold. One, whether we tell them or not, we still feel the pressure. And two, If we don't tell them, then we are the only one that feels this pressure. Remember that our deadline is also the other side's deadline. When we leave the negotiation, they are also done. So make sure that you don't suffer from the pressure of a deadline alone. Share the pain. Okay, what about time cost? Recall that deadlines and time costs are two distinct concepts. You want to share a deadline, but you would prefer that the other party does not know about your time costs. Of course, all of us have time costs. None of us have unlimited time. But often one party faces greater time costs than the other. If this is the case, then the rule is as follows. The party with lower time costs will have an advantage and should be able to achieve more concessions and a favorable outcome. And the reason is that the party with lower time costs can put a lot of pressure on the other side by simply delaying making concessions or making an agreement. By slowing things down, the party with the greater time costs find themselves in a worse and worse position. Either they suffer from higher and higher financial costs, like paying for expensive lawyers, or they see their alternatives getting worse. Their BATNA is getting weaker and weaker. Clearly, if you have high time costs, you will benefit from setting a shorter final deadline. One more thing about time cost. You might be able to use a few different ways to change the other party's perception of time cost. You can try to persuade the other side that you have all the time in the world to conclude a negotiation. Bring a McDonald's takeout meal to the dealership. You can also try to persuade the other side that their time costs will increase unless they make a quick agreement. You can try to persuade the other side that you have a good BATNA that will not disappear with time. And finally, you can try to persuade the other side that you have the resources needed to wait them out. Okay, time is running out. I have a deadline to finish this video in under 8 minutes. Clearly, we need to be aware of time when we negotiate. And you should try to use time to your advantage. Set deadlines when they are strategically advantageous and avoid them if there are strategic advantages from keeping the negotiation going, if the other side has high time costs.